Welcome to Bound by Books, a podcast of authors across the genres talking about that one thing we are all bound by, books. I'm one of your hosts, writer Danielle Bannister, and I'm joined today by fellow writer Tina Moss.
Hello, how are you today, Danielle?
I can't, I'm living in Maine here, so I should be, used to the extreme weathers, but we literally went from minus 15 for 3 days in a row to a snowstorm to 47 degrees in the span of like 2 days.
You're at 47 degrees now, Fahrenheit.
We were yesterday. I was shoveling slush. I mean, it was literal water. It was a mess. It was a mess.
Yeah, we're cold down here in New York, but like I don't know about you, but I feel like the older I get, the less tolerance I have for cold. I'm just like over it.
I see now why people want to go to Florida.
Oh, I totally get the whole, what do they call them when they're fleeing the winter?
Yes,
whatever that is, I get it. I do.
Yeah. That's really one of the only things that I would sort of like be like, okay, I would be willing to be in a relationship if somebody was there to shovel for me. Like, you know what? If that was like your one job and
That's
we
fair.
were married, but you were in charge of shoveling and killing the spiders.
There you go. That's it.
That's really all I need you around for.
Shovel and kill spiders.
The occasional jar opened. I don't,
I bang it on the floor too, the jar.
I am a simple woman. I don't need much.
I mean, and you're wearing your Bucky shirt, so Bucky has the arm, and he's capable of doing all that.
Exactly. So any applicants fitting this description?
Do you have a super cybernetic arm? To kill spiders and shovel and open jars.
That's right.
Done.
It's ironic that we're talking about spiders because that's actually we're actually going to be talking a little bit about spiders today. Our topic today is one that I'm kind of stupid excited about. We're going to continue our Marvel deep dive into how Marvel sort of connects to good writing. And so this week we're going to dive into Spider-Man No Way Home. There will be spoilers if you haven't seen it yet. I went opening night with my daughter because it happened to be her birthday, her sweet 16th birthday was the opening night. And I turned her into a very big Marvel fan. She reluctantly started watching them with me. She's like, okay, Mom, I'll watch one. So you'll stop bugging me to watch these with you. And I got her hooked. So for her 16th birthday, she really wanted to bring a gaggle of her friends to see opening night. She'd never been able to experience a big release Marvel movie with like an active audience.
Oh, awesome.
So she wanted that, but it was opening night and we live in a small town. And I knew that, and you don't have pre-orders there. You have to show up at the door. I mean, they're old school. They have three theaters and only one of them was showing Spider-Man. So it's there's a chance that you're not going to get this on your birthday. There's a very real chance, but we're also a really small town. So I was able to contact the owner and said, hey, here's the deal. I got a kid who really, and he made sure that it happened. He's like, you get here at this time and I will make sure that you get in. And
that's so cool.
Yeah. And it was limited seating because of COVID. So it was even less that they could let in, but she
that's
had
amazing,
an amazing
though. That's like, I don't know. That's some epic parenting right there. Pretty
stress
amazing.
Levels through the roof. Like we gotta.
Like I'm going to call the theater.
That's right. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna. The introvert is gonna pick up a phone and it's gonna call somebody. So.
And did she appreciate the level to which you went to?
She did. She made sure that she said, Mom, I'm sitting beside you because you're the only one who's going to get it at the level that I'm going to get it. And all night long, we were like squeezing each other and screaming and like patting each other and pointing. So
cool. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was good. Some of her friends had never seen a Marvel movie and this was their first Marvel movie.
Okay.
So she was like worried that they're not going to understand it, but I think they got it.
I mean, it's still a really just
really
well
good,
done
yeah.
film, even if you
Yes.
don't have and obviously we'll get into it, there's a ton of nostalgia to it, but even if you don't have the background, I think it's still a very watchable and fun film. So
yeah, and that's what I was telling her friends too, is like Marvel does a really good job of creating a movie that is watchable even if you haven't seen everything, but also will pay off those people who have watched things. That you will get a different experience if you've seen them. So that is a credit to the writing and the planning and the foresight that they had in creating.
And what a great thing for, you know, writers to think about too, in terms of, you know, paying off longtime fans, right? Somebody who's read all your books and followed you through series, when you have kind of those Easter eggs and inside jokes with readers, like that's something that Marvel does really well. And I think that authors can take to heart when creating a long time career. So you want to be accessible to new readers in every single book, but also you want to give that level of like insiderness to your longtime readers. Is there any way that you think of that you do that, or that you might start to do that for some of the readers that have followed you through several different genres that you write in?
Yes, I do write in several different genres.
I said it so nicely. I didn't pick on you.
I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to stay in my lane. I'm trying to be better. Absolutely. So like if there's something that's going to be a series of books, so like my later in life series, Doppelganger, Must Love Coffee, and Taking Stock, those are later in life romances that happen in the same small fictional town. They can each be read as a standalone, but they each have crossover characters. So there might be the grocery store worker from Doppelganger is now in Taking Stock, and maybe the coffee barista is. So if you read all of them, you'll be like, oh, I know who that is, or that's what their story is. And so it's a payoff in that way, but it's not, you don't need to read them all in order to appreciate it. Ask if you had any that were like that had any sort of Easter egg payoffs.
So I do. So there's a really funny one in one of my books, and it's based on an author group from, oh God, I want to say we're looking at 15 years. It's at least a decade ago. I think we're catching up on 15 years at this point, that when we were all first writing whatever we were writing at that time, we were going to put this phrase in, and it was going to carry through all of our books. So there's about, I think, at least 10 of us who did it, maybe 12. So if you know, and if you could find the phrase of all the different books, I'm not gonna reveal it, but that's one thing. And then recently I decided, because I was dipping into sci-fi romance, that I was going to create a character that was going to be an interdimensional being that could essentially go anywhere in any time in any world. So I have these ridiculously cute, here, wait, for our YouTube audience, I'll show an image on the screen. These are called Florins, and they're basically, my version of a corgi and kitsune, which is a 9-tailed fox, but they only have 3 tails. But yeah, I created this creature, and now he appears in various stories regardless of genre. I might even go back and pop him into some of my older books. And that's kind of just a fun, silly way to connect all of my books regardless of genre, time period, etc. So I thought
it's fun for readers who have read them all. They'll be like, it's kind of like a Stan Lee cameo, right? It's like, there it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And I let my reader group pick what color the florin is in each individual story. So
that's nice. So there's some ownership there too.
Yeah. I really like working with a reader group, and I don't know if Marvel does this, but I do think it's a fun idea of people that are essentially fans of your books, asking them for different things, like, do you like this name or that name better for a main character? Is this trope more of interest to you or that trope? And I found that that's a really fun way to bring people in and also get some good ideas for stories.
Yeah, they must do some sort of like testing of stuff. They just must.
And if not, they certainly encourage fan theories. Like they are all about fans just.
Well, I think that they're paying very much attention to everything that's going on, and that's also another way that they can pay off readers later. They can go, what are people latching onto? What are people really excited about? What do they really want to see? And maybe we can take that idea and go, you know what? They really like this. Let's find a way to bring that.
I think that's why Loki essentially got his own show, and I think that's why Spider-Man No Way Home went in the direction it did with bringing back the actors who played Spider-Mans in other movies, which is essentially now other universes, because the MCU brought in this whole multiverse idea so we could have this crossover from different movies. It was really well done and cleverly done to bring that nostalgia back for people that saw, the other Spider-Man characters in these other movies at a younger age. So people who are older and remember the older Spider-Man movie, because every generation, I think at this point, has their Spider-Man, right?
Yeah. Oh,
so,
yeah.
Like, who was Spider-Man for you?
Who's your Spider-Man? Yeah. Who's your first?
Yeah. For example, I had one of my students. He's a senior in high school now, so he's a former student of mine, and he texted me to tell me about colleges he got into, and I was very excited, of course, and I'm like, oh my god, that's great. And then I was like, okay, but more importantly, what do you think about No Way Home? So then we had the whole conversation about Spider-Man, because Garcia was Garfield, why did I say Garcia, was his Spider-Man, where Maguire was mine
Spider-Man.
So and he had all of this nostalgia for that character, where I had seen the other movies, of course, but Maguire was the first Spider-Man for me. So there's a certain level of like, that's my Spider-Man type of thing. Even although honestly, I really love Tom Holland, and I think he's probably my favorite Spider-Man. So scary to say that, because people will automatically come for you, no matter who you
will. Because everybody has their favorite, and it's not necessarily who you saw first. I mean, sometimes it is. I mean, it's not for me who my favorite is, but I have favorites for different reasons. Like I have a favorite Spider-Man, and I have a favorite actor who act. So we'll talk about those later, because I want to dive into some favorites and things sort of at the end. We'll do like a little rapid fire maybe of favorite characters and villains and things like that. So I'm curious, did you go to see No Way Home on opening night, or did you see it opening weekend?
Okay, so this is going to just speak to my brain for a second, and I know the writers out there will understand. I don't remember. I'm on deadline right now, so my entire brain is just only about writing deadlines. And I literally, when I saw, because for those of you who have been listening a while, Danielle is a planner, and she planned some of these questions. So I looked at them, and I was like, I cannot for the life of me remember if I went to see it on opening night or not. But I did see it. If I didn't see it opening night, I know I saw it soon after it released. I have my usual crew of friends that are all, Marvel fans that we go with. So
nice.
It's all kind of blends together sometime of who and what and when. It's usually just all the same. But yeah.
Okay.
But I was really careful of avoiding spoilers. I didn't look at anything. Like I didn't.
Me either.
Like no,
I didn't even want to go online at all. I'm like, the week leading up to it, I'm like, do I have to go online for anything? Because somebody's going to spoil this.
I know. I immediately, if I saw anything Spider-Man, if I even saw blue and red, I'm like, click away.
I'm done. Get away. No, don't want to see it.
No, absolutely. I was the same way. I could not have any spoilers for Spider-Man. But so one of the things that you had in our little planning segment was talking about the post-credit scene in Carnage.
Yes.
And then so and the Sony character Venom. Now Sony and Marvel have like this weird relationship. I don't want to really go into all of that, because it's like, I feel like it's political almost at this point. Yeah. But giving us Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man, we did have these like blurring of the lines between Sony and MCU projects. So did you go back and then rewatch the other Spider-Man movies for this movie?
So I once we heard rumblings that the villains might be coming back, I was like, you know what? We need to watch it. My daughter hadn't seen them. She had only seen the MCU product. She hadn't seen any of the Sony Spider-Man, and she was like, I don't know if I really want to watch them. I'm like, I think you might need to for No Way Home. I have a feeling that you're going to need to know at least something from these. And so we watched through them, and we started with, the Tobys, because that's where it started. Then we went to Andrew's. And she is my daughter. I'm just gonna say she is my daughter. She felt the same way about these movies as I did. Garfield is her guy. And
I think that's normal.
She's like, the first ones were a little too campy, a little too cheesy, a little too melodramatic. Toby's got a kind of a not expressive face. He's just kind of there, and the plot wasn't really very compelling. The characters, I guess, weren't very compelling to her, but she really loved the character work in The Amazing Spider-Man, but not necessarily the plot. Yeah, exactly. Some of the characters are really strong, but the plot was all over the place.
Right.
So she was thrilled with No Way Home. She was beyond the moon. So that is, I guess, that's something that speaks to sort of that writing things that readers want. And this could have played out really poorly.
Oh yeah.
Like, this could have been a movie that was like, oh, this was just a movie, a fan service movie. That this was, they could have completely went off the rails with it, but it didn't. It really felt earned, and it felt weighted. It felt like
very weighted. In talking, like I said with my student about this, it was intense. Like, I was not prepared for the level of intensity. I think because I always have, again, Tobey may not be my favorite, but I do still have in my mind Spider-Man being that, like, campy, Flash Gordon-esque, Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor Ragnarok campiness of the MCU. And Andrew's movies are obviously much darker. Tom's, I think, are somewhere in the middle, but I still, in the back of my mind, I think because that was my first introduction to Spider-Man on the screen, I still have this weird expectation of, like, lighthearted campiness. And there are dark moments in the first original films too, but still, it has that overall feel of, like, this is an alternate universe where you're not going to get hurt in it, really. It's kind of funny and more lighthearted.
This is a safe space.
Even in its darker moments.
Your feels aren't going to get hurt.
Right. But in this film, I was clutching my chest. I was crying. I'm like, I am emotionally drained afterwards. Like, I loved it, but also this was a lot. Yeah. There was screams of absolute joy, and there was shock, and there was, like, stillness, and to experience that sort of feeling in a shared environment was like, oh yeah, this is why we went to the movies. Yeah. This is why this wouldn't have felt the same on just seeing it in my living room. Right. There's a reason I needed to see this movie in this space. And I think that's why theater like that is never really going to go away, because that shared experience is so unique. Yeah, it is. And I don't know if it's too early to go into, and this is going to be a major spoiler if you haven't seen it. So we've warned you. You've been warned. The moment where Andrew catches MJ, and she looks up at him after he asks, "Are you okay?" And she says, "Are you okay?" And the look on his face, I don't know if it was the actor or the director or a combination of the two, but that moment captured on film was, honestly, it was so quick and so, like, could have just been easily breezed over, but they had this close-up shot of his face, and every emotion was in his face. Like every emotion that he was feeling, that we as the audience were feeling, was captured on film. And I thought it was really beautiful and well done. And it was heartbreaking, but it was really impressive to me to see that captured in a, what does people think of as just, another superhero film. I think we've so moved beyond the idea of just a superhero film, in air quotes, to it really being a medium to express human emotions and ideas and societal conflicts, especially with the new Marvel shows that have come out recently. And that moment for me was like the pinnacle of all of it.
I just saw actually an interview with him, how he was talking about what that moment was for him. And when he is asking, are you okay? He is hearkening back to when he's holding Gwen saying, you're okay. Like, you're okay, right? You're okay. And so he doesn't quite believe that MJ is okay, because in his mind, he's like still back at Gwen, like, this, I failed. And so to have her confirm that she's okay, is like, I didn't screw up this time. I saved someone. So yeah, I mean, and I think that is something that only Garfield could have pulled off.
Yeah.
I think Tom could have done a good job, but I think Garfield got the gut punch. He's great with a gut punch.
And I think the difference there too between Garfield and Maguire, and not to take anything away from Maguire as an actor, but there is another scene, again, spoiler, where, Tom's about to take the what is that thing called? The
glider.
The glider, yes, thank you. The glider, and really
finish the job.
finish the job. And Maguire's Spider-Man stops him, and it's just as, like, for me, it's just like one of those pinnacle moments, but there's something about it that's not as impactful as the scene with Andrew and MJ. There's something just so much deeper about the resonance of emotions on Andrew's face in that moment that unfortunately is not captured with Tobey Maguire. And I think it could have been. And I don't know if it's, like I said, if it's just a lacking of facial expression or whatever, but there was something just missing in that moment that the other one captured for me. But I did recognize it in the writing part that, like, oh, that's what they want. Here's in the writing, here's where the script writers went, boom, this is where we hit the audience,
Right.
So
that's sometimes where the writer and the actor don't line up, but you can see it there on the page. You can see it, and that can, like, translate if you're doing a book and a narrator maybe doesn't quite hit the way that maybe you heard it in your head. So there, sometimes things get lost in translation.
And I have to say, I don't think it's that, like, Toby did anything wrong in that scene. I think it's because we got the Andrew scene first that was just so, like, hard hitting, that the one that came after, I was like, this could be another one of those moments, but it's not, because my heart's already been destroyed.
Yeah. Did your audience, like, have that, like, moment of, like,
there was
like an audible
there was a collective audible. I think somebody I forget in the theater itself, but somebody was like, damn, like, came out, and we got it. Like, I would hope that as writers, when we are putting words on the page, we're really thinking, like, in that mindset of, how can I capture this emotion to the best of my ability and make my reader feel something.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately that's sort of the writer's job. We want to put somebody else into our character's shoes. We want you to sort of live their life and live their experience. We want you to feel empathy toward them, and if we've done our job right, you take the journey along with the character, right? And that only works if that is in the writing itself, right?
And you were talking a little bit before about how this movie easily could have went in the other direction and kind of been blown off. So what do you think it is that made it, like, this really great film and not just another eye roll?
Well, I think, first off, what I think that Sony did that was right is they sort of let Kevin Feige do what Kevin Feige does best, and he let the movie be driven by character and not by plot. I think this was up until even the filming that even all of the Spideys would have an idea for something, and if it was a good idea, they do it. You know, they're allowed the freedom to do it. It's not like, no, this is the box we have to stay in, which is sort of what I think sometimes other movies do. Like, no, the producers want this, the producer wants this, and so you have to sort of tick off all these boxes, and it becomes less about what the story is supposed to be versus what we think audiences are gonna want and need. And so with Kevin Feige, it's the best idea wins, and it doesn't really matter where it comes from. If it's the best idea and it's going to work to move the story forward, he makes sure that it happens. And I think this one was a very strong character driven movie. Yes, it had a lot of plot. There was a lot of plot. Don't get me wrong, but it was the characters and the character arcs, plural.
Yeah.
That really made this movie great for me. I mean, these movies didn't necessarily focus on the plot, but they focused on Spidey as a character, right? It felt like the plot was there, but it was on the back burner. It was more important what these relationships with these characters were. And, you know, as much as I loved Andrew in The Amazing Spider-Man, I feel like the character was what was put on the back burner in those movies.
Yeah, for sure.
More, let's put this plot, as much plot as we can. And I never felt fully connected with the characters that I think that I should have. So I think that is really the difference for me. What about you? Is there something that definitely made it work for you?
I mean, there's definitely the nostalgia aspect, right? So Marvel was really great at pulling in the older audience who has seen the films, who has grown up with them, and saying, oh, well, now you guys are the older ones, and we're going to bring back your Spider-Man to show you exactly where they are in their lives now. So it's kind of nice in that way, because I immediately was like, okay, Toby's in this generational bracket, Andrew's in this one, and then we have Tom Holland, and we essentially have 3 generations of Spider-Man. And there's something about that if okay, so not to hate on Star Wars, because I am a Star Wars fan. So don't come for me, Star Wars people. That's but there is something that Marvel did in this movie that I think Star Wars really missed out on, and that was making the Spider-Man and where they were now super believable. Like I instantly believe that, you know, Toby's Spider-Man had kind of like almost grown out of being Spider-Man and had moved on a little bit, and yeah, maybe he still does the occasional, but he's a family guy now, and he's a little older, and, you know, he's middle-aged, and that's how that works. And Andrew is still kind of fighting loss and fighting failure and never quite recovering from that. And it was just so believable as to where they left off in the prior films to who they are now. Whereas, unfortunately, with Star Wars, the characters were a little less believable than where they were now. And I'll leave that there. But I think that kind of continuity really made the story come alive for me, because if we had it a different way, like if Toby had suddenly become like this rising star and this, you know, mega super powerful Spider-Man or something, it would have felt so off to that character. And if Andrew had you know, gone the other direction and suddenly became this mild-mannered family man, it would have been lovely for him and he would have had the happy ending, but it wouldn't be true again to where they left off in the other films. So I think they were very good at the continuity, and I think that's what allowed this film to feel more believable.
And that's another lesson right there, right, that you can look at through writing, is that continuity. Do these characters, especially if you're doing a series or a trilogy, or do the characters do they work book to book? Not necessarily are they staying stagnant. Are they the same character in every book? Because that would be boring, right?
Right.
Does the character go through an arc in this series? Is there growth for them? And is the growth appropriate for what you've set up for the characters, right? And so that's a way to look at it too, I think.
I think there's also something about timing too, because just thinking back to Star Wars again, like if a lot of time has passed and you're going to make the characters, in my opinion, fundamentally different from where you left them, I think the problem is if you don't have any in-between storyline to get us from point A to essentially point Z now, then it's going to feel unbelievable. Even if in your mind that backstory is all there and it's all made sense to lead up to this point, if you don't show any of that to the audience, it's going to leave them feeling on the outside. And the last thing you want a viewer, or in our case, a reader, to feel is like they're on the outs.
Yeah. You can't immerse yourself into a world if you don't feel connected to the people in the world.
Exactly.
So speaking of characters and whether or not you connect to them, I want to bring up a character in Spider-Man No Way Home and whether or not this was an earned moment for you or not. And I want to talk about Aunt May's death. So with this movie, they decided to kill off Aunt May versus Uncle Ben. And I think that was a smart play. But what do you think? Did the death pay off for you? Did you feel that connection when she passed? Did you think that was the right move?
So I think it was the right move, and I think the scene was actually done very, very well. I think giving us the false hope that she had, not been injured and had made it was the way to go. Because it created that sense of like, oh, they're not going to do this again, oh, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden it wasn't.
She's not Uncle Ben. She's fine.
Yeah, she's not Uncle Ben. She's good. She, we thought we saw the glider like go through her, but no, clearly we were wrong. It must have been a flick of our imagination or something. Right. She's fine. And then to take that away in such a, and again, Tom did brilliantly with this, in such a really visceral way. I thought that was well done. The issue that I had was I've never felt the full connection between Spider-Man and Aunt May in these films. I think and I don't think it's a gender thing, because I think there could have been a bigger connection. I think it comes down to the difference between Aunt May and her more hands-off approach to her relationship with Peter Parker, in the sense that she's not an absentee parent by any means, but Peter is very much on his own in a lot of these films. And I actually think the greater connection is with Happy. And I think if they would have gotten rid of Happy, it would have given us the same emotional connection as Uncle Ben. I think the issue was more the connection that was built up between these two characters, or lack thereof, than the actual character itself. Because I think you still could have had Aunt May, but you just would have had to have a lot more backstory where they were connecting on a like life learning lesson, on a mentor-mentee style. Because that's really the relationship between Uncle Ben and Peter Parker in the prior incarnations.
That's where they didn't, I don't think, were thinking about Aunt May dying in this movie when they did Spider-Man's 1 and 2.
Definitely.
Because I think if they had been thinking that, they would have not gone the Aunt May Happy relationship sort of route for Aunt May. They would have, in fact, done just that. But I don't think I think that idea came way late in the process.
And they tried to build it up in the film itself by having her, take care of the homeless, and
they tried to do all the work in one movie.
Right, and showing Peter like what's important and all that. I'm like, but no, because that's not who you've been through the prior film. So I know where you're trying to go, but this doesn't quite work the same.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was, she needed to go. And I'm glad that we didn't get sort of that origin story that we got again with the Uncle Ben dying in the spider bite. I'm glad that this last trilogy didn't tackle that origin story, that we went a different direction and it took a unique spin. But I think you're right. They didn't earn that moment in the way they probably wanted to earn that moment. And it was just, I think, a lack of not planning that plot idea out sooner. And that happens when you're writing too, right? You have this moment of like, oh, this would be epic, but I didn't really set it up for it. I'm like, will the readers notice? Yeah, they'll notice.
Yeah, they'll definitely notice. Because it's not to say like that Peter doesn't care about Aunt May. It's his aunt, absolutely. And he lives with her. Obviously, he loves her.
And now he is utterly alone.
Oh, utterly alone. Oh, there's the heart again.
Oh. Completely.
Take it all away from him. Shatter his reality completely. Perfect.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Here's a little. I'm sorry if I'm gonna geek out a little bit, but here's a little Easter egg thing, and that maybe people know or not. But because I'm an Andrew Garfield fan, I've also watched Tick Tick Boom, which you haven't, if you haven't seen it yet, fabulous. But there's a moment in Tick Tick Boom where he's drinking out of a paper coffee cup, and it's the same coffee cup at the end that MJ hands.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's the same cup.
Oh, that's so cool. See, I love stuff like that.
So that's like an Easter egg of completely different,
That's so fun. That's just fun. Because I'm assuming Tick Tick Boom is Sony also?
It's Netflix.
Oh.
I think maybe it was an Andrew Garfield idea.
Somebody got along. Somebody gave the okay.
I'm sure probably Andrew Garfield was like, I want to do this.
That's so cool.
Why not? Or it could have been an epic coincidence. I mean, maybe that's just a generic cup in the New York area. But it seems too convenient that it's the exact same takeout to-go cup. I mean, it might be like the to-go cup that all movies use. I don't know. There's like newspapers that are saying.
Has anybody said anywhere? Like, has anybody recognized it? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen people saying it's the same cup, but whether or not it was an intentional thing, that I don't know.
We're gonna go with intentional because it sounds more fun.
We're going with intentional. I like it.
That's cool.
Okay, so we have some time. I wanted to go into some like sort of rapid fire sort of questions that may or may not have anything to do with the writing, but they definitely have something to do with the MCU. So I wanted to talk to you a second about Electro, a character in this movie and in the Amazing Spider-Man characters. Same character, completely different takes on the character. One is blue and not all of that with it mentally, and and the other is got a black suit on, yellow vibes to him, and is a hottie and has it together. What did you think of that? Like, did they?
I mean, in my mind, it was just a different character. Honestly, when I was watching the film, I'm like, I almost didn't put the two together. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was so different. So different that my mind just went, oh, okay, we're just going to consider him a different character and not really think about it. And then afterwards, I was like, wait a minute. Because I think I was so into the film, I wasn't really, paying that close of attention to it. But I mean, I get it. I get where they were going in No Way Home and why they did it. It was it was off-putting thinking about it afterwards, but I guess in the moment it was fine since it didn't really distract me from the film. What did you think?
Right. Well, I'm glad they made the change because I didn't care for his character, and I thought it was campy and cheesy and melodramatic and just like above what. So come on, this is Jamie Foxx. Let's give him something better than this. And I think the MCU was like, this is what we would have done if we had a chance to do it. This is what we would have done. And so I like what they did, but I'm not. Maybe they didn't explain the transformation. Not buying it as much. It was like, okay, that's a pretty thin transformation reason there, but okay, well, we'll go with it just because it looks like a better character. Are you happy or mad that? So we spoke about this a second ago that they didn't give Tom Holland an origin movie like they did with Toby and Andrew.
I'm totally fine with it. I don't think he needed it. We had the origin films. Spider-Man, I think, is the number one superhero in the comics, sales wise for Marvel. If you don't know Spider-Man's origin story at this point, you're living under a rock.
Yeah, I think anybody, if you're not even familiar with that, oh, he got bit by a spider and that's why he has powers.
I did really love the difference when all the Spider-Man are on the screen about the webs. Yes. About Toby having the webs and the other two wow, I gotta fill up my canisters for this. That was hilarious.
Well, and there again is the writing kind of weaving some sort of plot discrepancies together, because sometimes that happens. You'll go, oh God, I didn't really write this well.
Fun, honestly, poking fun at it, which in a very everybody knows this, so let's just put it out there kind of way. And I appreciated it.
Right. Yeah, and that's again they're paying attention to. Oh, the fans are already sort of mocking us for this. Let's just do it anyway.
We're gonna mock ourselves, and we're gonna use Spider-Man.
We'll be in with the joke for you.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. We were talking about character quite a bit. Who do you think is sort of the least developed character in any of the Spider-Man? I want to say trilogies, but they didn't all get a trilogy. Yeah. The Spider-Man movies, either a hero or a villain. Ooh. Who's underdeveloped, really should have done something more with them.
Honestly, in Toby's films, MJ. I think MJ is just a stockboard heroine, damsel in distress.
Flat two-dimensional character.
I think they did Kirsten Dunst dirty.
I mean, this is Kirsten Dunst. She can do some stuff. Give her something more than just, screaming.
Yep.
She can do more than scream.
It was not good. It was just no. Even thinking back on it, I'm starting to get angry. I'm like, oh God. You can rant about this for a while.
Especially when you see what they did with Gwen. It's like,
exactly.
Come on, you could have done so much more. But again, I think movies have gotten better with representation. For sure. And this is an example of what not to do. Yeah.
If you would like a cardboard cutout, damsel in distress, here's a perfect example. Right. Please don't go in that direction.
Who has no character, go there. Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, that would be a good one. And probably the Gwen Stacy of that same universe as well. This just sort of two-dimensional, blonde, ditzy, unaware of their surroundings and
with no agency, with no agency of their own whatsoever. So
yeah. So we're on the same level there. Favorite Spider-Man actor?
It's so hard. Because I think Andrew's brilliant. I don't think anybody could deny him as Spider-Man. The only issue I have with him, for me, is that he's a little too pretty and a little too Hollywood heartthrob. And that's not his fault. It's it's not his fault that he's so pretty. But just because Spider-Man is supposed to be, a little geeky, a little nerdy. He goes through the transformation and he gets the Marvel muscles, so to speak. Right. But he's still Peter Parker, average, mild-mannered type of kid, Right. So I do really love Tom Holland. I kind of adore the direction that he's gone, and I think he's kind of the perfect mesh between, although he is adorable. I know a lot of people find him attractive. I can't, because I just find him so freaking adorable. I have the Captain Marvel essence to mother him, in right. But he's so great. And Toby, again, I think Toby is probably a better actor than what those movies were. I think at the time he did right by the role in playing it as campy as he did. I think I'm going to
assume he was directed to do that.
Yeah. I think if it had gone in a different direction, if it had been darker films, I think he would be a Spider-Man that we say, yeah, we liked him as Spider-Man. I think it was just the way that the films were. I don't think it was anything about him. What about you? Who is your favorite?
I think Andrew is the better Spider-Man and Tom is the better Peter Parker.
That's a great way to put it. Yep.
So because basically for the reasons that you said, I mean, you can't quite pull off that nerdiness that Spider-Man sort of, because Spider-Man is supposed to be like sort of that everyman, that one,
Yes.
that person that sort of you don't really think could be a superhero, and Andrew could totally be a superhero.
Clearly.
He could be. So yeah, there's that. All right, so favorite Spider-Man movie of all of them?
Ooh, that's a really hard question.
Yeah.
I almost want to say No Way Home,
Yeah.
which feels like a cop-out answer because
it does feel like a cop-out, but it's going to be my answer too,
right?
Because it just pays off too many things. It just pays off too many things, and it has the most at stake, the most emotions, the most highs and lows. But it needed all of those other films in order to have that.
Although I will say Into the Spider-Verse and Miles Morales. And
I love the little nod to that, even in that.
I can't wait until we get the next film with him. I think the animation is incredible. I think the storytelling is brilliant. I think we're going to have a nice big expansion into that particular universe of Spider-Man. Yeah. But it's, even though he is Spider-Man, it still feels very different from Peter Parker Spider-Man. They are Spider-Man, but they're different characters in my mind, because there's Peter and there's Miles. So for strictly Peter Parker films, I would say No Way Home. Yeah.
Best villain?
I love Doc Ock.
What is it about Doc Ock? I don't know what it is either, but I don't know if it's just his cool, the arms that are so cool, or what.
I mean, Green Goblin.
Green Goblin in No Way Home. Just, thank you for getting rid of the mask. Thank you, MCU, for destroying it. I think we all were like, yes, let Willem Dafoe be Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
He doesn't need to be masked.
Is it Green Goblin or is it Willem Dafoe? Because I think it's Willem Dafoe. Because Green Goblin is not that great of a villain, but Willem Dafoe.
It's true. But Willem Dafoe. Yeah.
I mean, there's no argument. I can't go anywhere with it because there's no argument for it. He's just incredible in everything he does. But I do love Doc Ock.
I agree.
There's just something.
There is something just about that outfit that's just really stinking cool.
He's also really weirdly endearing though, because he's kind of like the professor who wanted to do well but went wrong, and here's why, and you kind of want him to have that redemption arc to him. So I think it's part of that. Who was the favorite villain for you?
Yeah, it's probably that toss up between, again, Willem Dafoe or Doc Ock. I mean, because the other villains are trash. But they were just trash. Were not,
and they
weren't developed.
They shouldn't be, because they do have like pretty meaningful backstories, and they should be better than they are. I don't know quite what's lacking there. I think we just have this huge cast, and not everybody can be number one. And like I said, once you get Willem Dafoe on the screen, all bets are off. You're falling into the background. I'm sorry.
No, it's true. And that, I don't know if that came down to acting, to the script writing and that, but there was just something lacking in those other characters. Speaking about villains, where do you think Venom is going to fit? Going up.
So excited. I'm so excited for Venom.
What is going to happen?
I don't know. I am so excited to see where they're going to take Venom, because I don't know where they're going to go with it. Because so many times, unfortunately, when you've been with a series and been with a universe for a while, you can sort of start to see where things are going, and you get an idea.
See the pattern, like, okay, this is what this one's going to be about. Yeah.
But with Venom, I have no clue, and I love it.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to be happy with whatever direction they take. I am here for it. Let's go.
I mean, at some point, they are going to have to get Peter back to his friends, because back to that life at some point. But for now, they could really go
mess
anywhere.
With him for now. Mm-hmm. They could mess with him. The symbiote could latch on to him. This would be a perfect time for him to be latched on.
Spider-Man? Oh my God.
It could happen. Why not?
Yeah.
So I guess I'll end on this last question. What is the best MCU trilogy so far and why? We've got the Iron Man trilogy, the Captain America trilogy, the Thor trilogy, or the Spider-Man trilogy. Which one and why is the strongest as a whole?
I gotta go Iron
Doing
Man.
it dirty. Iron Man, really?
I gotta go
Okay.
Iron Man. And
and why?
I think because I know a lot of people are going to say Captain America. A younger audience is probably going to say Spider-Man, and nobody's going to say Thor.
Nobody's going to say Thor.
No. Ragnarok was brilliant. The other two films were questionable.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
But Iron Man, I guess because it starts it off. It establishes the phase of the MCU that we've all come to love. And yeah, there are tons of problems with some of the earlier films, but there's something still, and I guess again it's nostalgia that brings the whole thing to life. So I think for me, and I am an Iron Man fan.
Iron Man girl, so yeah.
So because and I've had this conversation with my friends and my husband many times. And I know you're a Cap girl, so forgive me.
Well,
but to me, Captain America is Superman, Iron Man is Batman.
Yeah.
And therefore, I gotta go Iron Man. What do you think?
Yeah, I gotta go Captain America only because of the Bucky Barnes arc that happens. Sorry, I am team Bucky all the way. But also, I just really love the Russo brothers, and I think they completely turned MCU on its head. And I love the direction the writing went, and how the stakes were so raised in those last two trilogies, in Winter Soldier and in Civil War. Just from a writing standpoint alone, those I feel were really strong written, really strong directed.
And I think that's what it is. Iron Man and Captain America trilogies have a lot more weight to them than Spider-Man. With the exception of the last film, they don't feel as weighted in the MCU, as intense, as heavy. So if we're just looking at the third movie of each of the trilogies, that might be a different conversation. But the trilogies as a whole, I feel like Spider-Man is probably not the strongest.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. And I think that has something to do too with the villains maybe not being as strong as they could have been. And but that's always a perpetual problem with villains is how do you get them to be sort of on the same level as your hero, because they really need to hold that same weight. They need to balance each other out, and oftentimes more weight is given to the hero. And so there's
I think that's why Thanos did so well, because he was
gave him the weight,
well constructed throughout the different movies, that by the time we really got into his story, we were already invested.
Yep. Absolutely. Well,
long podcast. If you made it to the end, claps for you. We knew it was going to be. Anytime we're talking Marvel and writing, it's just going to happen.
Oh, that does it for us today. Be sure to join us next week as we talk more about books and the things that we all love about them in Bound by Books.
Bye.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.